Welcome, folks. This is AllMinusOne, and I am your host, Bill. And with me today, I have the illustrious Joshua Hamm, who is running for Texas State House. So, welcome to the channel. If you're not familiar with me or have been here before, please, give us a like and a subscribe. If you enjoy this content, go down into the links below. Go over to Joshua's page, where you can donate to him for his run for office. And then also, if you would like to donate to me in any way, you can do that through Entropy. Now, I'm being told right now by Popcorn Power that Entropy's not working, but I had it up just fine here. It's running for me, and I'm going to refresh it. Yep, still running for me. So I don't know, man. Entropy gets funky sometimes. In any case, there's a PayPal.
I have found when watching Entropy that, like, once it transfers from waiting to watching, a lot of times you have to refresh it because it doesn't update that it's actually live now.
Right. So I find problems with it when I watch other people in Entropy quite often. It's just, they're small startup guys, they're a small firm, but it's run by good people that want freedom, and people that are allowing us to be able to make money through your donations if possible. Of course, I am very aware that times are tough right now, so please do not donate if it's going to put you out, right? I'm going to be here either way. I'm compelled to do this. So anyways, that's enough of my mouth blabbing. Josh, you just filed for office the other week. And, I could have asked you this off air, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you now. Did you get with the people that my wife and I tried to hook you up with? Have they got you any help yet?
Not yet. I don't really want to go into specifics, but basically they said that come January is when they'll be more active.
Okay.
But I'm not in the thrown out category. That's
good.
Best I could get. But somebody actually ended up reaching out to me on their own from the association, and I let them know. I was like, no, I've already submitted a survey and everything, and so they were like, oh, okay, cool. So maybe if they have found me on their own outside of my solicitation, then maybe that'll accelerate the process. We'll see.
Yeah. Sorry, just reading this chat real quick. Popcorn Power said, okay, it doesn't work with the Center browser, but does work with Brave. Okay. Yeah, there's always that. I use Opera a lot, or at least I have in the past, and sometimes it's funky about things. But anyways, so what's I know you have many purposes for running, Josh, but primarily you were thinking about making it an educational thing, if I'm not mistaken. Is that the same, or have you changed that? Or
well, I mean, the primary purpose is to win, obviously.
Right.
But there are secondary goals as well, and one of the two main secondary goals is I'm just a blue collar diesel mechanic, man. Like that's who I am. And so if I'm able to run, there's no excuse that other veterans, other parents can't run as well. And we desperately need good people who don't want to be in office to actually be those leaders. We need servant leadership. People who are going to understand the proper role of government is to protect the rights of the citizenry, and then we'll enact that, as opposed to, wanting to do it to grab power or to, fluff their name, to try to somehow get their names in the history books and prove how righteous and virtuous they are. That's not what you need in a time of ideological war of good versus evil. And that's the time period we're in. We need warriors, not sycophants.
Absolutely, 100%. And and that is very much part of the theme of the channel here is the fight against good versus evil, but as well as the weakness of our society and how it's gotten this way, how it's eroded what we've lost. So I think that there have been so many good men and women that have been worried about their own lives and families, and maybe even their own local communities in different ways, right? Like on a personal business level, there's been much of that, but very few anymore decide to run for office. And most people are just cynical about the nature of office. And I do believe it is a generally a field in which attracts narcissistic folks or folks who exhibit some other form of the dark triad, and they
Yeah.
wish to, exert power or make money or those kind of things, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the in the marketplace of politics, the what politics is where ugly people go because they can't get to Hollywood, right? And,
Right.
and so, and that's true to a large extent. And so, if you're if you're unsuccessful in business, or if you're unsuccessful as an actor, or if you're unsuccessful in just being a decent human being, well, then you can prove your mettle in the arena of politics. For some, that obviously there are some actual warriors among, but in general, and a large part of it is the fault of people like me. Um, I was asleep, you know, for the right. The game that we are playing and what we define as winning is completely different, right? And so it has to be understood that before, what we thought of as winning was the fact that I'm married, I have children, my children are becoming successful, moral people who have values within them. I'm winning in the right wing sphere, but my children are losing. They're losing opportunity. They're losing liberty. They're losing, you know, the ability to be able to have their own children and be able to instill their values within them. And so, because the game the left has been playing for at least 50 years has been the game of power, right? And we just wanted to be left alone, but that doesn't work if that's not what the other side wants. And
Right.
slowly but surely, we've had our ability to be left alone degraded to such a point that somebody like me, who just wants to be left alone to raise my children, now I've got to get involved. And that's partly my fault because I didn't pay enough attention before it became painful to me. And so now I have to do, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? And so I'm going to have to do my part to try to fix this. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, but we're well past being able to prevent this. Now we're going to have to do drastic measures to cut back the cancer of evil that's just infecting our society at large.
Right. And this is a long 100 some odd years march to where we are at. And with that, they have done much of it subversively
Mhm.
and have worn people out. And it's really, I get what you're saying about not paying attention, and most people don't. But really, it's the previous generations that sold us out for, something up front. And I think people who are in office now or who are trying to work with other folks in the political sphere in some way or another, and even in our local communities, we cannot have solutions that are immediately gratifying for us, and we have to look toward the future. We have to look at this as a generational war, but it has to start now. The foot has to go down now, and we have to fight. And that means every one of you out there listening, you need to get involved. Well, I mean, I appreciate you all watching and the networking that I've been able to do over the last year through creating this channel. And I appreciate the people that donate because that does absolutely help my family out. Make no mistake about that. But but aside from doing those things, there needs to be something else out of your own life that you can contribute to getting our society back on track.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
The basic thing that everybody who's held a rifle understands is talk is cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you doing? You know, actions indicate where your priorities are. What is it libertarians like to say all the time? Revealed preference versus stated preference.
Right. And once again, guys, and if you are tight on money, and of course, if you're not watching this live, you're not going to be able to donate to me unless you do it through PayPal or something. But I would much prefer that you donate to Josh and his campaign if you want to donate in some way or another. But charity is a personal responsibility, in my opinion, and that's what that would be in both counts. And I don't believe in government welfare. I think that human beings, individuals, have a responsibility to take care of their fellow man. As the first real act of evil, biblically speaking, with Cain and Abel. Abel said, or Cain said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And it's like, well, yes, actually, you are. And that's part of the problem with our society right now is we don't have enough brothers keepers anymore. We don't have people watching each other's backs. We become too atomized and too independent. And people on the right, people who are liberty minded, have forgotten that community is what holds it all together. Because despite your individualistic values and despite your own family and all, if everything around you is against you, you're not going to make it. You're just not.
Well, and people on the right wing have this flawed perspective where they actually they're like, oh well, I started out as an individual and therefore this is the thing that I must hold to. And it's like, no, you didn't. You started out as a member of a clan. You started out as a member of a family. You started out as a son, a daughter, and then later you'll become a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, aunt, uncle, niece, whatever. And so you begin as a member of a community, and you need to understand that community is inherently a part of who you are, and you need to start acting like that. And this includes me too. There's a reason that I'm looking at trying to get my brother to move closer to me when he gets out of the military. There's a reason my parents don't live far away, because I don't want to make the mistake of my parents' generation where, my aunt's in one state, my other aunt's in another state and everything else. It's like, no, we need to build a coalition. And that starts with just having a family where you can depend on each other.
Right. 100%. Spook's in the chat that we need to get involved. He said that's going to be hard in this speech oppressing absolute monarchy. Yeah. Well, you're out in Qatar, buddy. That's a little different circumstance. I mean, I don't speak to other nations generally. Appreciate your viewership and everything and you wanting to learn whatever it is that you're learning from me. But yeah, I can only speak to America because this is, I wish liberty would spread across the world, but this is the only place that it was a founding principle, and
and I would say is the key word in that
yes,
statement, because
yes,
we have political prisoners right now. Kyle Rittenhouse is a prime example of the fact that the state will come to crush you. We've got the January 6th political prisoners. We've got more. We got a lady that just got arrested at a PTA meeting and so on. The state is currently being weaponized against you. And that's a long, dark road that we're about to go down. We may yet be able to change things peacefully, politically, through pressure, but that's going to require a lot of effort that most people aren't willing to do. It's going to be long, it's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to require individuals who are willing to stick their head out and do so. And most people aren't, and that's fine. But if you're not, at least try to support the people who believe somewhat similar. You're not going to be able to find your purest expression of the person who encompasses all of your ideas. You got to remember that 80% your friend is still your ally. Don't let purity become the enemy of moving in the right direction.
absolutely, and that's been a big thing with a big problem with the Libertarian Party for years. and why the Mises Caucus has been so invigorating to it, because they're working with Republicans, and I'm not a Republican, but I would say generally, not the neocons, of course, not the rhinos. Those are all those people come from the left. They do. You can research the history of it. They come from the left. But the liberty-minded folks, I'm willing to work with them because they do hold some of these principles. Now, there are other things I'm going to disagree on, but again, we need to
But
get the
are we?
ball rolling. We have to get the ball
Yeah,
rolling before, we can think of anything else, before we can start
right.
nitpicking over every little position, right? And
Yeah.
speaking of
Let's
things,
let's work on abolishing property taxes, and then we'll worry about trying to worry about 3% versus 4%. Let's get rid of infanticide before we start complaining about the Fed. Like you really have to find people where you can agree on a couple of things and just start moving forward and start winning, because wins beget wins, courage begets courage, but so do losses and so does cowardice,
right?
right? And so you have to just, at some point, you're going to have to work with people that you don't agree with on everything because you agree on enough.
Exactly. Well, in my fantasy world, this is all the problem with scaling, and why we shouldn't have such uh, a large government with such underrepresentation. But Josh, I got someone here in the entropy chat, Mr. Strippy, saying this man ought to outright capitalizes off the transphobia and bigotry in his campaign. I would vote
I
for whoever his opponent is if I were in Texas in his district. I heard him talking
Yes,
about leasing classrooms and teachers, um, teaching children about racism and bigotry. He wants to creep on the bathrooms trans kids use or which healthcare decisions they make. And, you know,
right.
we don't
So
care.
what this is, this right here, okay.
Yeah,
So what this is a person on the left who is attempting to weaponize your Christian values against you. What they want to do is they try to turn Jesus into some sort of peace loving commie hippie. And that's not who Jesus is. It's not who Jesus was. Okay.
right.
And the fact that I want to peacefully be able to coexist with someone does not mean that I want them to politically be able to institute child pornography into schools. Those are two different things. Okay. And they will and are attempting to weaponize the Christian value of just trying to be polite and kind against you. You cannot let them. Look at Lauren Boebert. Look
Right.
at that. What happened? She said a joke. Maybe it was funny, maybe it wasn't. I don't care. The point is, what immediately occurred after that is she apologized. And what happens when you apologize?
You're weak.
You have not just that, you have admitted in your apology that you are guilty
Yep.
every time, because you wouldn't apologize if you hadn't done something wrong. And so as soon as you apologize, now you are saying I did wrong, and now they have every bit of authorization they need to punish you as much as they possibly can, because they will. They're already weaponizing the DOJ against you. They're weaponizing the FBI against you. They'll weaponize municipal police forces against you. They'll strip you of every bit of power that you have. You cannot conform your way to actually having liberty. It doesn't work. And I am never going to apologize to baby killers who want to sit there and preach to me about what is right and just to protect my 13-year-old daughter. You can go pound sand. There's a girl in Loudoun County, Virginia, that got raped in a bathroom because they were unwilling to protect that child. And if the state is to have any purpose at all, it is to protect the weakest among us. So, damn right, I will absolutely use whatever power I have to protect my children and yours. And if you don't like it, fine. We'll never get along.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing. For those who don't know, the Lauren Beaupart thing was she made a joke about uh, Ilhan Omar running, but at least she didn't have a pack or something like that. Like
To
it
be
was a
fair, I
bomb.
think they were. I think they were both in an elevator, and a security guard came running up, and Lauren said, "Oh, you don't have to worry about it. She doesn't have a backpack," making an inference that about terrorism.
Right.
Which
Right. So
I
maybe
don't
that wasn't
care when
appropriate,
somebody
but you
who
can't.
apologizes for the Muslim
Right.
Brotherhood and says that 9/11 was a thing that some people did, this one
Right.
time. Make all the jokes you want. Mock them mercilessly. That is an Anglo-Saxon American tradition, is to mock people in power. Use it.
Yep.
Never kneel.
Yeah, well, I was saying maybe it was sort of inappropriate for her to say that, but is it really that big of a deal? The left says all kinds of salacious things all of the time, and
Yes.
it's Kyle Rittenhouse is still a white supremacist, even though I know a bunch of people who don't pay attention got all butthurt about him saying he supported BLM on Tucker, but he said that prior during the day of the shooting when he was videotaped by I believe Richie McGinnis. So guys, this is what they do. They're always censorious towards those of us who just want to live a peaceful life, and we don't want to infringe on you. We don't want to infringe on anybody. But the of course problem is that the left cannot cede any ground. They must have complete control. They are absolutely 100% psychotic, psychopath narcissists. They wish they have delusions of grandeur. They wish to control every little aspect of life. And most of them, go on about trans people and black folk and the poor and whatever else, although they don't really care about the poor anymore.
They don't care about any of those groups.
Yeah,
They're all just machinations for power. That's it.
Exactly. They're all emotional appeals to manipulate you. That's all that they are.
Yes.
Because if they actually cared about any of those things, they would be talking about the economics and the liberty that Josh and I support.
I mean, at the very least, they would talk about fatherhood.
Yes, 100%.
I mean that by itself is the largest contributing factor to mental health, to poverty, to all the ills of society. I'm not saying that fatherhood is the cause, but I am saying it is a contributing cause to all of the ills that currently plague us.
It's a huge contribution, but what they're doing is, as I often say, is they're literally trying to implement Plato's Republic by removing the children from the parents and allowing the state to raise them. And they started this in the Black community, and the Black community has suffered tremendously because of it. And it used to be that Blacks were more likely to be married than whites, and if they had children. And now, of course, it's like 70% rate amongst Blacks, and it's like a 40% rate amongst whites. And that's not good
for children being born out of wedlock.
Yes, single motherhood, and that contributes tremendously to crime, to poverty, to all kinds of things. But the left is against the natural order. They are truly satanic. And if you guys knew about not everyone on the left, mind you, but the peoples in power, if you really understood about their religious beliefs and what they think of you, that you are a useless eater and those kinds of things, you would understand why they are wholly evil.
Realistically, if you just listen to them, then you would never, ever sit there and try to work with them or anything else. They tell you what they want. They want you arrested. They want you imprisoned. They want to take your children from you. They want you to die. That's what they say. That's who they are. Stop giving them excuses. Stop saying, oh, this is a conversation, and if we just bring enough data to bear, then these people will come. No, they won't. They are evil. You are never going to be able to sit down and have a discussion with a member of a cult. It's very simple. I got nothing against the Church of Latter-day Saints or Mormons or any of them, or Mennonites, whatever. If one of them rides up to your door, knocks on your door, you let them in, you sit at the kitchen table, are you going to be able to convert them?
Not likely. Yeah.
No. Now, is it possible? Of course it's possible. Is it worth the time, the energy, the effort, those valuable resources of which you have less than you would like? No. You either agree with them or you don't. You might say, thank you, I appreciate your time or whatever, but you're not going to sit there and talk to them for 12 hours unless you're just trying to be a pain in the ass, right? And so it's the same way when dealing with leftists. They are a member of a cult. You have to understand that. They want to take your children. They want you to die. That's what their stated, explicit claims are. Believe them. Stop giving them excuses. And that doesn't mean that your Democrat neighbor across the street who just, has been voting Democrat for 50 years and doesn't pay attention. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the people who are actively working to destroy you, to destroy your family, and to destroy this nation.
We're talking about the CRT and these trans movements and whatever else. And by the way, I would say I'm pretty sure whether you agree with it or not, most of us, we don't care if you want to be, transvestite. It's your body. It's whatever. I don't care, man. But you're not going to force that. You're not going to force that onto me or my family,
Right. In the 90s and the 2000s, when we were growing up, we looked upon trans people the same way that we looked upon people who dressed in Uncle Sam costumes and wore stilts. Quite frankly,
yeah.
I don't care. You can do that. But if you're trying to show your genitalia to my child, well, now we have a problem. Doesn't matter if you're wearing an Uncle Sam suit on stilts or if you're just, dressing in a skirt. I don't care. You can dress however you want. But once you start messing with my kids, well, now that's a new problem. The problem isn't the fact that you can dress how you want. The problem is that you want control over language, and you want to use that control over language to begin to destroy the very fabric of reality. When
they
you
want
got
control.
People that can't even tell you the definition of a woman, that's ridiculous.
They want control over your heart and mind. That's the bottom line to it. So with that, Josh, told you we talk a little bit. Let's look at some news articles because I think this actually comes into play here. So after the Rittenhouse verdict, there was chants about how communism was going to solve racism and injustice and whatever else. And then this happened. And again, we don't know fully what the motives of this individual were, but his social media would seem to indicate some things. So let's listen to this real quick.
This tragic incident is identified as Daryl E. Brooks, male, 39 years of age, who was a resident of the city of Milwaukee. At this time, the Waukesha Police Department is referring 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide with additional charges based on the investigation, but those will come in time. The suspect involved in this tragic incident.
All right. I like this right here because I know Kit put what the public is failing to understand is that he was set free specifically for this event. The POS had 5 cases pending, 3 of which are felonious, and he was already in custody. Why would law enforcement organizations set him free and for $1,000 bond?
Mm-hmm.
He was basically hired to do this.
In his social media, he talked about attacking white people. And he had a song he sang about killing white people. Yep. And he had one of the charges against him was him earlier that week using his vehicle as a weapon to hit somebody. This is not.
Here he's going to tell you about.
You are correct. We don't know all the facts, but we can sure make some pretty good inferences based upon behavior and history and speech.
Yeah. And here in this video, I don't need to play it. It's been around, but he admits that his baby mama, he's considered a pedophile because he was pimping his baby's mama when she was 16 and he didn't know she was 16. So yeah, here are just some of his posts just to go through real quick, or I'm not going to examine them. You guys can look these things up.
How shocking that the left is once again defending a pedophile.
Right.
I'm just shocked.
Right. But this is a pretty good video about his path. Now I'm going to warn you guys, I'm going to play this. I might have to stop it at certain points because you always got to be iffy with the YouTubes. But this was the path that he drove down. This is accumulated from 8 different camera angles. So it says first video recorded near 101 West Main Street by the History Museum. Last video, the red SUV rams through the barricades. By the way, I did have the police report, but I forgot to pull it up for the show. So, but you can go find that pretty easily, the police report. I think actually Jack Posobiec has it put up. The cops stopped this guy and ran after him. He intentionally did this. Obviously, as far as he was driving, it was not an accident.
Correct.
Yeah. Half a mile, crossed 8 intersections. And that's going pretty fast.
Well, he actually started slow and then sped up after he got past the barriers.
Of course, this has been all around Twitter. He almost hit this little girl. And then, and guys, I have the volume turned down, if you didn't notice, for reasons. Here he's swerving. He swerved around a car, and then right up here is where he hits a bunch of people. So just, and then obviously people had to rush in. So this was a, has been known to some as they're calling it a massacre, and it kind of was. It was like 6 people were killed, and what, like another 40 were injured or something?
I mean, in the military, we definitely call that a mass cow.
Yeah, yeah. And then Yahoo had a thing on GoFundMe.
Yep.
So after all of the GoFundMe saying that no, Kyle Rittenhouse, we don't allow legal defenses, they did take this down after some backlash, but
yes,
had a GoFundMe. And what's really
good,
Josh.
I was going to say currently, I believe the Milwaukee Black Lives Matter group has a GoFundMe for bail for $5 million, which happens to be the exact amount that gentleman's bail is set for. And but they don't specify what bail it's being used for. It just happens to be the exact same number.
Isn't that wonderful? So I got a bunch of tweets and whatever else. But the big one is here. These are actually fundraisers for legal defense in all locations. And they're still going with this as they put a press release out the other week that they do not allow for legal defense. So it's just a very, very long page. You guys can check it out yourselves. I'll just put the link in the chats. But right here, as you were just talking about, Daryl Brooks' GoFundMe is back in the skies. Milwaukee Black Lives Matter. So crypto lefty here still allow GoFundMe.
I'm going to take a quick pause and go hit the head. I shall be back momentarily.
All right, no problem, man. Popcorn Power, I see he had I don't see anything wrong with what he has stated on his campaign website. Looks good, but kind of light on details if he's campaigning against an establishment Republican. Is Josh trying to primary an established Republican in District 12? I think he is. Well, we can ask him when he gets back here. I've been talking to Josh off and on for quite a while, but I believe that is the case. It's to win the primary, but he's in like a an R plus 12 district. So the Republican is going to win. It's just a matter of getting in. Remove him there till he comes back. So here we have Andy No flashback. GoFundMe deleted legal fundraisers for Kyle Rittenhouse, but allowed crowdfunding for violent and extreme Antifa militias from the Post-Millennial. I wonder how much money will be raised to bail out the Waukesha killer. How long will GoFundMe allow it to remain on its platform? Well, it's taken down, just replaced with the Black Lives Matter one. And folks, if you don't know, this guy's wearing a safety smock. He is on suicide watch right now. Whether that's been stated or not, I was a jailer for 13 years. I was a correctional deputy for 13 years. That's a safety smock, so he doesn't commit suicide. He's a high profile, high risk individual. So he's either been kind of out of his mind, thinking he's going to commit suicide and stating that, or because of the nature of this case, he is on suicide watch, just period, which jails do. So
it's a good thing we don't have examples of that being ineffective in recent memory.
Yeah. Do you think what Darrell Brooks did counts as terrorism? Not really by a technical definition. Only, look, political motivations to do something doesn't necessarily make you a terrorist. Political acts of violence or threats of violence to get political gains are terrorism. So there's a difference. You have to differentiate that. What do you think, Josh?
Let's break that down real quick. Do you believe that he was engaged in violence for the political means of decreasing the ability of white people to defend themselves due to anti-white propaganda that has been put out by both the government and the state media apparatus? And do you think that he was doing it in response to, as he stated, the Rittenhouse event, which became political again due to the state and what they did? All of those factors suggest, yes, it actually is political in nature and terroristic.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see what comes out of the court case and his statements or whatever. All I'm saying is that, you can be politically motivated, but unless you're trying to actually force an outcome, I don't, depending on who you're talking with. This is just a guy, when I was in the military, my job for a few years was anti-terrorism.
Right.
So I'll tell you
right.
technicality here.
And when you're talking, coin operations, counterinsurgency operations, for those unfamiliar with military jargon, the goal that you may be looking for doesn't necessarily have to be a specific political goal. It can be as simple as attempting to ensure that your political opponents are too afraid to be able to stand against you. Right. One of the reasons, like say, bombing a polling station, their goal is to shut down opposition. Well, that's a specific political aim. And if we're looking at, an attempted goal at shutting down political opposition to Black Lives Matter, to, critical race theory, and to, these talking points that have been put out by the left, if it looks like a terrorist, smells like a terrorist, acts like a terrorist, pretty much looks like a terrorist to me.
Yeah.
That being said, I still think that the current domestic coin operations going on is not good by any stretch.
Yeah. We did have a question while you're away about.
Yes, he is a Republican incumbent.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Roger.
All right. Anyways, so here we have, of course, again from just another Twitter from the other day that Jacob Blake had a GoFundMe, and again, that GoFundMe says, "Oh no, we don't do this." And of course, we have other people saying that they are the enemy of the people.
It's weird how Jacob Blake, the same person that multiple people said died, and that's why the Rittenhouse riot occurred. Huh. Shocking.
Yeah, I know. So here we have a GoFundMe not only allowed a fundraiser to fund Riot Kitchen, dedicated to providing logistical support for riots, but the company itself actually donates $500. So what I would suggest, guys, don't use GoFundMe.
Seriously.
Yeah. And then, of course, they had a fundraiser for Huber's family, which honestly, I don't really care, but yeah, again, it's they're trying to say that they're apolitical and they don't fund defenses, but that's not the case at all, now is it?
No, and stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. It's intentional. It's
Right,
purposeful.
right. Oh, I guess there's something else there I wanted to bring up. Aha, I got it. And of course, we all know this already. Rittenhouse denied funds. Of course, that worked out for him, but there's a lot of problems. And of course, we found out about the whole Lynn Wood thing and Lynn Wood trying to keep him in jail. But if you listen to Robert Barnes, you might have been aware of some of that stuff already.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get this stuff gone.
And for those who noticed that I'm on mobile, I apologize. I live rurally, and so my internet is not always the best. I also have 3 children in the house that are 13, 7, and 17 months, and so
pretty
inside
loud.
the house is their attempts at quiet are endearing, but not enduring.
Oh man, my wife and I had a hell of a day yesterday with the baby because she just super fussy yesterday. I guess she was teething. She's about ready to pop a tooth, and just would not sleep. Just fussing nonstop. I mean, if you don't have kids, folks, it's a hell of a time, but it's worthwhile.
All things in life that are worthwhile are difficult.
Yes, agreed. That's part of the
But
reason.
not all things that are difficult are worthwhile. Understand the difference.
Yes. So this story out by Nick Adams says a police officer fired for donating to Rittenhouse wants job back. The woke mob tracked down the officer for giving a $25 to Rittenhouse's legal defense. The police officer who was fired for supporting Kyle Rittenhouse with a $25 donation wants his job back. And
he should also sue them for wrongful termination.
Absolutely, 100%. Here was the original Guardian article, I believe, back in April about this. Absolutely absurd. And this had to do with a data breach, but once found out, they fired him. It's like, what the hell? So this
what
is the
happened
stuff.
to law officers not using the poison fruit of the tree? Yeah.
Well, it's crazy because when you work in law enforcement too, I can tell you firsthand. Again, you may do things as a public individual, but depending on your administration, they might come after you for it. It wasn't a big deal. It didn't become a thing, but I actually had to sit down and talk with a major in an investigation because I posted a picture, like a meme from Fight Club, and in the part where Jack's talking about bringing in an AR-15 or whatever he says and shooting up the office. But it was just, I just thought I liked that movie. It was just like a joke thing. I have no idea, but someone reported that to work and was like, and I just told the major, I was like, well, I'll take it down. I was like, I just like the movie. I didn't even think about it. I didn't know someone was going to get butthurt and call my work and be like, call the sheriff's department and say, hey, your guy at work here posted a meme and now he's going to shoot up the office. So
it's about power and control.
Yep.
Because if they can get you to censor yourself, they're already on the path to victory.
Yeah, 100%. And then at the same time, then we had, we're going to move into some self-defense stuff here in a little bit, guys. I just want to talk about a couple of these other cases and things going on. But if you didn't know, there was a shooting the other day during Black Friday in Durham, North Carolina. So this is just the crowd running. By the way, don't do that, guys. Go into a store and go out. let me explain this to you. Do not run like this if you think there's a shooter. Go into a store, find your way out through the back, and get out the emergency exit in the back of the store. Don't run through the area where everyone's going to be at. I don't know, Josh. Would you concur? That's a good idea.
I mean, if I'm running to escape because I'm unarmed, then yes, I'm running in the quickest direction away. Most people mistakenly believe that running away, vertically is the proper path. No, you want to run perpendicular. That's the best way. So if they're going north and south, you go east and west.
Right.
The herd will move north and south. Get away from the herd. They're just as dangerous as the antagonist.
So this is 1 of 3 wounded in South Point Mall shooting remains in critical condition. Now, one of the victims was a 10-year-old, supposedly shot by a ricochet. We don't know, or I didn't know, I haven't looked into it today, but when I saw this the other day, we don't know the motives or the individual per se, but they seem to have known each other. And this is just a thing of a leftist city. And so people are going out on the biggest shopping day, and someone got shot in a mall. These things generally shouldn't be happening. A man shot at the streets in South Point Mall in Durham Friday remains in critical condition as of Saturday afternoon, according to Durham police. 2 others who were shot, another adult male and a 10-year-old, sustained non-life-threatening injuries, Durham police said in a news release. In addition to the 3 people who were shot, 3 others were injured in the shooting's aftermath, meaning they were probably trampled. So,
yeah, the lizard brain is strong. And so it is incumbent upon people that, like, people really need to understand that when people like Bill and I are telling you that this is an ideological war, that means it's a war. Okay. And so you really need to begin to prepare yourself for the possibility, at least, that you're going to need to defend yourself and your family. There's nobody coming to save you.
no.
You are going to have to become the rock upon which your family can stand. And hopefully you'll be using Jesus Christ as your rock upon which to build. Otherwise, you won't stand.
Well, amen to that. Yeah, I 100%. That's the importance of the Rittenhouse case, by the way, folks. Now, the Arbery case went another way, but I understand why it did. I think the most gross injustice in that was that the guy who videotaped in the truck behind got charged as well with felony murder, which is absurd, in my opinion.
Well, and a large part of that is because his defense lawyers, public defenders, or whoever they were incompetent enough to allow him to get tried at the same time as the others. So they all got lumped together. He should have gotten his trial separated from the others. And he might have more luck on an appeal, but you never want to go that route if you can avoid it.
This dude's interesting with the takes. Nothing original here. Another GOP candidate exploiting a rape to gin up fear of trans kids in bathrooms. Hopefully it doesn't work. Maybe supporting a murderer does not look good for a cop. So proof. Welcome to the world of civilians. I don't even know what you're getting at, partner. What you're saying sounds insane to me. So I don't know the context, but in any case, I was going to play this little excerpt from the police real quick.
CEANDREWS. So the information that I'm going to give you at this time is a preliminary little bit of information that we have thus far. Please understand, we're going to take some questions after. There are going to be some things that I'm not going to be able to answer just simply because I don't know right now, or it's a part of the evolving investigation, okay? So at approximately, sure, yes. I'm happy to do it again if I need to while you get set up. So at approximately 3:23 p.m. This afternoon, Durham police officers that were working off duty inside of the mall, side of here at South Point, requested assistance after hearing the sound of shots coming from within the mall. As a result, the mall was placed on a complete lockdown. The responding officers discovered that 3 people had been shot. Preliminary investigation has shown this, that the shooting that occurred today occurred between 2 groups that knew each other. Those individuals following the shooting, the majority of them fled. However, we have one person that is being detained, and we do have several witnesses. The 3 individuals, one of those is a 10-year-old juvenile, and they were transported to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. They were injured as a result of a ricochet from one of the rounds. So
now, this was just Friday. This was a few weeks ago. 2 kids, ages 2 and 11, hit by bullet while sitting in car at Burger King drive-thru in Durham. And I don't know why this article's coming up weird, but these things are kind of semi-common occurrences there. I wonder why. I wonder.
Anybody want to take a guess as to how they voted and whether or not it's an urban center or not?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely an urban center, but
in general, urban center means Democrat.
Yes.
Not always, but in general.
Yes. Well, it's the ancient story of the city versus the countryside. And for some reason, the city seems to think that they have the right to tell the people in the countryside how to live. And the way things are going right now, the people in the countryside might end up starving out the cities. It's like...
what is it? A third of truckers look like they might have something to say about this OSHA mandate. You know, what's funny is I actually used to drive teams with my dad, and we would drive from Houston, Texas to Edmonton, Alberta in Canada and back every week. So I was literally working with and one of the people who would have been directly affected by this kind of federal overreach in an attempt to micromanage the economy and individuals.
Yeah, the mandate's been shut down. They're going to try and do things anyways. I never thought it was going to go through. By the way, I don't know that there's any legislation at all anywhere about 90% of this lockdown stuff, mask mandates, any of those things, which means if it's not legislatively done and then signed off by the executive, it's not a law.
That's correct.
Yes. So one of my congressional candidates, Michael Cisco, who I'm going to try and help out with his campaign here as well in West Virginia, he actually got a law passed in West Virginia that for mandate exemptions for, I believe, medical and religious exemptions. And it was rather easy. He just went to the legislator and said, "Hey, why do we have this? Let's do it."
In my opinion, could have just passed if you're going to get legislation through, just get legislation in that says you can't mandate, period. It must be done legislatively, and it has to actually conform with our rights under the United States Constitution.
But don't you find that funny that a guy that's running for U.S. Congress can go to the state legislature and get them to get a bill enacted and operated rather quickly? Because I didn't even know this till I met up with him the other week, because I hadn't talked to Michael in a while. And he told me that. And he can do that rather quickly, yet all of the executives, for some reason, somehow, cannot get their legislatures to pass whatever laws that they're wanting. That might tell you something about the nature of their character and the desire for power that they have, right?
And that's one of the reasons that I'm running against the incumbent. He has not spoken out in favor of having legislative protections for Texans. Again, if government is to have any role at all, it is to protect the rights of the citizenry. And so,
absolutely,
if you're not actively advocating for your people, then you are failing. Let somebody else who will protect them step up to do so. Because I promise you, I'm a lot less scared of words.
Okay.
Something, rockets and mortars make, the pen and paper less scary.
Strippy was saying the guy who recorded the video, you're talking about Arbery, the Ahmaud Arbery case, I'm assuming. See, it helps when you add context, partner. Address specifically what you're saying. If someone dies in the commission of a felony, they're in charge with murder. The video man was an active participant. Was he? Or did he just pull up to the scene?
Well, and that's why he should have had his case stripped aside.
Right.
Because
that might be your
he
judgment.
could
I didn't
have
watch all
argued
the
that.
right. I didn't watch all the Arbery case like I did with Rittenhouse. But to me, that whole thing was self-defense because Arbery grabbed the gun. Now, they might not have been there for proper lawful reasons, which seem to be the case from my understanding, because they did not have direct knowledge of a felony going on at the time. But I understand why they were there. Huh?
So that's where the difference comes in, right?
Right.
The way that it works in Georgia, according to the law, and the problem is the judge didn't settle this, and that's a big part of it. The judge punted. So a big basis for the law was that is it that if you have a preponderance of evidence, then you can do a civilian arrest, or that if felonies have been occurring, then you can make a citizen's arrest and gather information from there. And so the way it's written, it's not entirely clear, and the judge should have ruled on that. The legislators should have written it more clearly, and there are multiple people, political and legal pundits who have argued both ways. All I'm saying is the judge should have made a ruling about it instead of leaving it to lay people. That's not what a jury should have decided. Is trying to interpret what the law is. And that's what experts are for if they are to have freaking purpose.
Right. And in the case where a law is ambiguous, it always goes in the favor of the defendant, by the way, folks. It's supposed to. So the fact that the judge did not rule on that was wrong. So I know like Nate, the lawyer, thinks that justice was served, I believe. One of the law tubers, but I don't know. I think the whole thing was iffy. The guy that showed up, though, like, I don't really think felony murder should be a thing anyways, unless you're actively participating in something. But I don't understand how any of that would be considered murder. When someone grabs your gun, it becomes self-defense immediately.
The reason they say it's felonious is because false imprisonment is a felony. And the state argued that because the truck blocked them in, that they were falsely imprisoning him, and so he had nowhere to go, so he had to turn and defend himself. And so they had effectively cornered him, and so they lost the right to claim self-defense because they initiated the aggression by boxing him in. I'm not saying that I agree one way or another, just my layperson's understanding. Again, I'm a decent mechanic, a veteran, like blue-collar worker. I don't understand all of this fancy wordage.
Right. Well, again, with that, I mean, I think, again, by the law, it seems like that they were guilty. Whether the law is just or not, that's another thing. I don't know. I don't fully understand it, but I didn't watch every minute of the trial like I did Rittenhouse. So I'm not going to sit here and pontificate as if I know exactly what happened. But I do know this happened from real clear politics. If I can talk here, let me get a drink of water real quick, guys. Father of Ahmaud Arbery speaks after verdict, all lives matter. But did he really say that? Well, let's listen. Let's listen.
We got that list mark. This history today. Letting you know that black kid life don't matter. That's right. For real, all life matters. All life. Yes. Not just black children. We don't want to see nobody go through this. Amen. I don't want to see no daddy watch a kid get left and shot down like that. That's right, Mom. So it's all our problem. It's all our problem.
True. Who wants to see their kid die? But
Real
Newsweek
quick,
says no.
Bill.
Ahmaud Arbery's father did not say all lives matter.
Real quick, Bill. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm getting reverb every time you play a video. I don't know if chat hears that as well, but
I don't know why it's been doing that. I did that last week, and I watched my stream last night, part of it, not all of it, about an hour or so, and it comes in and out. So I don't know what I have to do to correct that, other than maybe get headphones. But it hasn't generally been a problem. So I don't know what's going on with that right now.
no worries. I'm not judging. I was simply providing information.
No, that's fine, man. I mean, no, I appreciate that, because that's something I want to get corrected if that's the case, because there should be echo cancellation and all that stuff. It might be because I have my mic volume turned up that it's picking up that way. So yeah, I don't know. In any case, Newsweek said that he didn't say that. Basically, Popcorn said you couldn't hear what he was saying. Basically, he was saying all life matters. I don't think anyone, he says, we're black, but it's not about black people. I don't think anyone wants to see their kid lynched or whatever. I don't think that's what was going on, but the Newsweek decided they had to dispute this. Some outlets and reporters have misquoted Marcus Arbery Sr., however, suggesting he used a controversial slogan that is associated with criticisms of Black Lives Matter. All Lives Matter is a controversial slogan. Several tweets claiming that Arbery said, all lives matter, went viral. What he actually said was, all life matter. Like, what are you splitting hairs over, Newsweek?
I mean, these are the same people who tell you that saying it's okay to be white is controversial.
Yes.
So recognize who you're dealing with. Dirty, dirty spear merchants.
Yes. And these same people are the same people that do things like this is from Memeology 101, guys. And I'll turn my volume down. Hopefully you won't get that reverb.
Unfortunately, many people that access healthcare feel stigmatized. They might experience racism or prejudice, and whether it's perceived or it's real, when you're experiencing it, it's very real.
Have you experienced it?
I have experienced it.
My great-grandmother was Tlingit. She married an immigrant. They moved from the far northern BC into Saskatchewan, and they had a family. Greetings. My name's Morningstar Bear. Whew. I'm just going to say it. I'm emotional. So, I'm Bear Clan. I'm an Anishinaabe Métis from Treaty 4 territory, and I want to acknowledge the territory that I'm in, Treaty 6 territory, home to the Cree peoples and homeland of the Métis Nation. I also want to acknowledge my ancestors who are clearly here with me.
Barassa's great-grandmother was Johanna Salaba, who immigrated from Russia to Canada in 1911 with her mother and sister. She married Joseph Knizichek, who was also a Czech-speaking Russian. In a statement released after CBC's story published, Barassa reiterated that she does identify as Métis, and she's hired a Métis genealogist to help her investigate her ancestry. She says the communities that she serves do not rely on, quote, blood quantum in order to assess who is truly Indigenous.
So we're back to the one drop rule, huh?
All right. That's the end of that. Anyways, yeah, back to the one drop rule, right? Another Elizabeth Warren, apparently, just the Canadian version. Like 100%.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing how all of these white people embrace their white power by claiming to be anything but white.
How dare you? How dare you, sir? Yeah, I know. It's like
I mean, There's a reason I went and joined the military at 18. I'm a male WASP. There was no chance I was getting scholarships or grants or anything else. And, you know, and that was back in 2002. I was salutatorian of my school. Now, granted, it was only like 100 people in the graduating class, but still, you know, like, it didn't matter what my qualifications were. All that mattered was there was nothing for me.
Yeah. Well, I only brought that in, obviously for some levity, but I only brought that in because that's what I was saying. Like the Newsweek is doing this thing. You have these people in the government that are complete fakers. They just completely want attention. Of course, we had this story that was kind of hot the other week with a lot of people of this professor, and now they've resigned in embarrassment apparently. So for pushing pedophilia.
No, they didn't resign because of embarrassment. They resigned because the university got upset that they had been found out. They started losing dollars from their alumni, and so they quietly asked him to leave, him, her, they, whatever, to leave so that they could retain their money. See, it's about the pocketbooks. It's not about embarrassment. These people don't feel embarrassment.
Right. Yeah, and it's a shame. And this is all the stuff that it's like you keep lurching more into the dark side of things on the left there, folks. This stuff's pretty creepy. I mean, I don't know why you want to sexualize children or think it's okay to sexualize children or think it's not that we shouldn't stigmatize people who sexualize children, because we 100% absolutely should stigmatize folks who are going after the innocent, because that's what they are. They are innocent.
There are ways to protect them. I've heard wood chippers are affordable.
Yes. So,
and for anybody who wants to read about how that's not Christian, blah, 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 Christ said to put a millstone on them and throw them in the water. So be very careful about how you attempt to preach to me about the Christian faith. Pound sand.
I don't think he said put the millstone on them. I said it would be better that they put a millstone on them. And I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about. But anyways.
That is.
Yes. Not going to argue. Because he was saying God's judgment is wrath. Yes. So anyways.
If they're not willing to do it themselves, I am Christian enough to help out my fellow man.
There you go. So probably should have brought this up a little bit earlier, I guess. But, kind of had a couple topics that crossed over each other a little bit. So, but this is a big story that the law tubers have been covering, debating, talking about, and this is in your home state here. And Chad Reed's widow releases a video of deadly shooting. Kurth attorney makes case for self-defense. It's an interesting video. I'm not going to play it, guys. Go watch the law tubers. But basically, the guy goes and gets a gun for this other guy at his property, the property lease he's occupying. And the guy is not leaving. He grabs the gun, swings him around, slingshots him. And then as soon as he releases and the guy slingshots, he pulls the gun up and shoots him twice. And then, the guy's wife, his widow, just argues with him for several minutes. And it's so weird. No one's like, call the cops. No one gives first aid. No one's like, call an ambulance, call 911. It is the weirdest thing ever. But in any case, I don't know, Josh, what was your take on this? Because I've heard a lot of Texans think this is completely legitimate self-defense.
I mean, was he asked to leave the property?
Yes.
Okay, then it's legitimate self-defense in the state of Texas.
There you go.
It's really like, let me explain this to you, because out here in Texas, you can just paint purple, and that is a no trespassing sign where you have given due warning to people. And so if you find anybody on your land that you haven't given permission to, and you've posted a sign that says keep out, no trespassing, or purple paint, you can shoot them on sight. You don't need a reason. They're trespassing. That is the reason. You don't have to be in fear for your life or anything else. If people are on your land and you have asked them to leave and they choose not to, they are taking their life in their own hands.
He was there for a court-ordered pickup of the kid. Yes.
And then he should have gone to the sheriff and asked for help from them. Once you're
Yeah.
asked to leave, like Texas is real big on this funny thing called personal property.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he should have shot him, like morally, but
That's a different
not what
question.
this is about.
Yeah, that's a completely different question.
Right. That's not what this is about. This is about laws and what the laws are and what you're allowed to do under the law. So
And to be fair, I am just a blue collar dude. I could be completely wrong. I'm not a law tuber or anything else, but I can tell you that if I tell you to leave my property, you don't leave, I go and get my gun, and you still don't leave after I have increased the level of aggression, that sounds like a you problem, dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, once he grabbed the gun and slung the guy around,
at that point he was armed.
Right. Eric Hewley earlier today had what do you have? Joe from Good Logic on and Darth Crypto, somebody else, I think, and they were talking about this. Might have been Legal Mindset.
Yeah, there is no duty to retreat. There's none of that in Texas.
There's no brandishing laws.
Escalate.
There's nothing against brandishing, according to them, from what I understood.
I mean,
so a lot of states have that. Yeah. But people don't understand because they live in cities and they're never around guns. It's really interesting because this with the Rittenhouse case, people kept saying, well, he had a gun that immediately instigated the situation that provoked yada, yada, yada. And so my thought is does that mean every time you see a police officer, you're doing that? And then I see leftist morons on Twitter who are in politics, like here in West Virginia, Mr. Richard Ojeda, who's also a veteran, who would make takes like that. And it would be like, so when you were in Iraq and brandishing a weapon, you were provoking the Iraqis around you or the Afghanis if you were in Afghanistan? I mean...
Well, brandishing is a very specific terminology that is not the same as wielding. And that's part of the problem, is that they are intentionally conflating language to make it murky.
Yes, Spook, I kind of agree with you here. He says, I mean, either way, the kids now absolutely hate their mother and her boyfriend now. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's... But again, I'm just saying about on the law. I wouldn't have done this, but I definitely have had firearms on or around me when dealing with potentially aggressive people before. That like with my ex-wife, not with her or anything like that. I'm saying like her boyfriend at one time wanted to talk to me, and I'm just like, what are you doing here? You have nothing to do with me. Get off my property. And I remember he's like, just listen to me. And I'm like, no, get out, go. I don't want you.
And that's part of the problem why, I can't really talk that much about it, is just because, like, I don't know the background. How many times does this guy come over to the house? How many times has he ever destroyed anything? Has he ever put his hands on him? We don't know the backstory. And so if this guy, I believe he's a United States Marine Corps combat vet, if he's been harassed and manhandled before by this guy that outweighs him by 50 pounds and has like 4 inches on him, he may not be willing to just sit there and let himself get punched in the face again. I don't know if that happened or not, but we clearly have a person who sees a firearm and thinks the smart thing to do is to escalate.
Yeah. And I don't know how aware you are of this one.
Oh, that the only reason that he got convicted is because he's in Austin, and as soon as he pleads and gets a decent jury of his peers, he'll get released. This is complete horseshit.
Do you know the details of the case before I have to?
Basic details. I believe he was an Uber driver. and there were Black Lives Matter protests or whatever happening in Austin, and he's just sitting in his car. Some crazy guy with a rifle comes up and is carrying the rifle, and he taps on the glass, I believe, to try to give directions or something, and then he puts his hand on his rifle and begins moving it, and the soldier who's in the car takes no chances and just puts a 2 or 3 in his chest, I believe. I don't blame him one bit. As soon as you start moving that rifle, because I'm non-compliant, if you think that I'm just going to sit there and let you bring that around to bear on me, you've lost your mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because what essentially I keep bringing up in the Rittenhouse case, ADA Krauss was saying is, oh, you just got to take your beating. You just gotta allow yourself to be murdered. You just gotta allow
No, you
yourself to
don't.
be shot or beaten. You just gotta allow your building, your property to be burnt down. You just gotta allow the left to do whatever it wants because, I mean, if you do something against someone who's protesting some sort of uh, left wing cause, then you're an evil person. It's the most Gnostic thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, if you understand what Gnosticism is about, it's basically the belief that because you have the proper internal beliefs, it doesn't matter how you act.
Yeah,
And that's the way the
it's
left works.
the ends justify the means.
Yes. It doesn't matter how they act. It doesn't matter how horrible they are, how unjust they are. It doesn't matter because they believe in their minds and in their hearts in Black Lives Matter and the trans movement. They believe in all of these other things that they're false causes used just to manipulate folks so that the people at the top can gain power. That's all this is about. And all you lefties that fall into it, you're useful idiots. You literally are.
Well, what they don't understand, maybe they do, and they're just evil, but what we have currently occurring is a modern day reincarnation of the Salem witch trials. No bullshit. You have people who believe they know best and are willing to sacrifice whatever it takes in the continuation of their cause. And they will sacrifice whomever they need to continue it.
Yes, 100%. Up in New York, elderly man ambushed, attacked, and stabbed in broad daylight by a gang in police defunded NYC.
Is this where you put up the Pikachu face?
Huh?
Is this where you put up the surprise Pikachu face?
Yeah, right. And we'll watch this if it'll play. It's not going to play. Dag nabbit. So the incident happened in Midtown Manhattan on the morning of November 10th as a victim was walking down West 44th Street just before 6 a.m. And is there a video there? See what the twatters say. Nope. No video there. Well, I was hoping to watch this video, but in any case, New York City,
the same place where a woman got raped in the middle of the train. This is the same place where we watched.
And no one stopped it. No one stopped it. No one stopped it. They just watched.
Yeah, that we watched a woman getting viciously beat about the face, and there's a dude right next to her, and he doesn't. This is what equality looks like. Is this the equality you want? Because this is what equality looks like, where good men or people who might be good men will not interfere because you are now responsible for yourself, your choices, your actions. That's equality. Is this really what you want? Or do you want order? Because order requires the patriarchy.
Yes. Well, the reality that we are facing in our society is that the folks who are in charge and are in power have a deep hatred for humanity. They really do. They want to eliminate most of it. They talk about it. You can read it in their writings. And their religion is diametrically opposed to Christian ethics and beliefs. Therefore, what is the easiest way to attack that, since Christianity is at least in the Western modern industrial world kind of a weak religion anymore? Well, because people don't normally go to church, they don't have a real spiritual life, a lot of atheists, all that stuff.
And
What do you do?
and because for 50 years Christ has been taught as a peace-loving commie hippie, and he's
Right.
not.
So what do you do with that? Well, you've already basically turned down the church and its attendance. So the next thing you have to do is go into the inherent value set underneath of that, which is being European and European values and Roman values, because that's
Yeah.
not the
It's the
early
West.
Roman values before the church, but the Roman values that developed after the church, right? And
It's classical Western philosophy
yes,
that undergirds the entirety of our economic, social, and political thought.
So what's
You
the
know,
easiest way to go after that? Well, you go for you go initially for the men, you say the patriarchy, and then you go for all people who are a part of that, and therefore you say the whites. The
well,
whites.
they started even before that, because they
Yeah.
began to tarnish the virtues themselves. What is truth? What is beauty? What
Right.
is order? What is justice? These things, these virtues, that these aren't new concepts. Socrates was talking about them from 3,000 years ago or something. Like, these aren't new concepts. And they have intentionally muddied the waters around these concepts, these ideals, these virtues, so then they can cloak what they're doing. Destroying the patriarchy is also a step in that. Destroying the natural order of families, of men. Yeah, it's all a part of the same desire to subvert the natural order, and in doing so, subverting Christianity itself. It is antichrist. It just is.
Yeah, 100%. No, and it's like, I know when someone hears me say that isn't paying attention or doesn't know where I'm coming from, it's like, oh, you're just crazy. But I can show you and spell it out to you. In fact, that's what I spend a lot of my time on the channel doing when I'm not talking about things in the news.
Part of that is because people are under this false impression that the quote unquote antichrist is some sort of individual, and it's like, no. The devil works via subversion. So the antichrist is all of the virtues and values being warped and twisted until they become unchrist-like, or
Yeah.
even the opposite of Christ.
Well, the word can both mean another Christ and can also mean against Christ. So,
Right.
And I would take it both ways.
And
100%.
subversion is the natural tool of those who wish to destroy the natural order.
Right.
Again,
100%.
they will use your Christian values against you if you let them. One of those is the desire for peace, the desire for prosperity, the desire to be left alone. They'll use that against you. And you have to stand firm and stand fast.
100%. So, we're going to get away from the self-defense and all that kind of stuff. Again, this is just real. Obviously, this is going on in our culture right now. Rittenhouse was such a big case. The media smears and all that stuff. That's why I kind of wanted to talk about it.
I'd like to see Kyle Rittenhouse run for state attorney general and start destroying these corrupt people from the inside.
He did say he was thinking about getting into law, and I would like to see that as well. And honestly, he should get into law, and get with maybe Andrew Baranka or something and start working on self-defense law. That would be poetic justice, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, unsolicited shill. I bought Branca's Law of Self-Defense. I actually bought 3 copies so that I could pass it around to other people that I know are also armed, because, again, this is a war. You had best start preparing yourself, because the violence is coming already, and it has been the brown shirts and black shirts have already been activated. Kristallnacht hasn't happened yet, but they tried with January 6th, and they will continue to try. You've got to be alert, be aware, and you have to start actively working to create community and to try to get people into positions of power who will actually lead in defense of you and your family.
100%. And this is where I say go local, folks. Is the federal government important? Do we need people in there? Yes, we need good people in there, but focus locally because you're going to get a lot more done and you're going to fortify your community a lot faster.
You know what I would love to see? I would love to see the Libertarian Party be useful by having 10,000 Liechtensteins. We got in my local group, we got 5 or 6 libertarians. Why aren't they running for sheriff, city council, mayor? They could win those seats because most of those are considered, quote unquote, non-political. And so you don't actually have the albatross of an L next to your name. So you can run for those. You can spit your ideas and you can begin to become involved, and you can begin to diminish the power of the state as it affects you at home locally. But that's hard.
Right.
And it's not sexy. It doesn't sell. You're not going to raise a bunch of money. It's just not going to happen, and so a lot of people are less interested in liberty than they are in their party ideology.
Yes, 100%. It's team tribalism 90% of the time. And I find that this is because of the themes we've been talking about the atomization of our culture and the individual, that we have just a ton of people walking around with a ton of false presuppositions and no core principles. So whether it is the Republicans or Democrats, they just don't have any real thing to stand on other than I'm going to help my team out.
Well, and so we as human beings are tribal creatures. Okay, so just understand that, acknowledge it, accept it, right? And so define who your tribe is. Start building that community. Start creating your own tribe. Don't make your tribe red or blue or gold. Make your tribe about helping out your people and your community.
That's right.
And that can change things dramatically, because you have a God-shaped hole. You also have a tribe-shaped hole. Okay. So if you don't feel God in your God-shaped hole, then people who are materialists will place the state in the position of God, because they will look around and they will go, from where do I derive my rights, my liberties, my freedoms, who protects these rights? And they will say the state. That's just what's going to happen. And so they will place the state in the role of God, and they will begin to worship the state. We see that on Team Blue all the time. Okay. But you also have a tribe-based hole in your heart. And so if you don't actively build your tribe, starting with your family and your community, then you will just accept whatever tribe is willing to, try to accept you. And that's not what you want.
Right.
You do not want to be dependent on the outside.
This is part of what's going on with the LGBT stuff, because these people are confused. They're in the midst of an identity crisis, and therefore, in order to find some sort of identity, they're getting in these groups that are elevating them with some sense of power and authority and righteousness, and it's completely toxic.
It's the same dumb kids when we were growing up that were emo and goth.
Yep.
It's the same crap. It's just, instead of wearing white face paint and Jinkos, they're trying to, put on breasts and cut off genitalia. But it's the same principle of wanting to be a part of a tribe, wanting to be a part of an in-group, wanting to be accepted and everything else, and not being grounded in reality. Because, what are you really going to hurt if you're, a skateboarder boy, or, wear Jinko, or listen to, Marilyn Manson or ICP, right? You're not really going to hurt anything.
Right.
But the very, that which is accepted by one generation or tolerated by one generation will be embraced by the next. It's the same things. And one of the things that we should be doing on the right is embracing the fact that we are the insurgency, that traditional values are actually the values that are most looked down upon and are, going to end up being the best, and is the outgroup preference, right? And so if you want to be a rebel, be a traditional Catholic mom. Like, that's pretty damn rebellious nowadays.
Yeah,
I'm
it
not,
is, right?
I'm not Catholic nor mother, right? But like, if you want to be a real rebel, stand up for the flag.
Right. Well, I
But
just want
again,
real quick want to say,
Republicans suck at marketing. They
they
suck.
do. They're terrible. I
Oh,
want to say, hey, real quick to Yiz and Big Nick, because they are
Mhm.
both other YouTubers. So, hey guys, and friends of ours. And also,
good people.
Popcorn. You said the Libertarian Party wants open borders. That's not true. Some libertarians some do, some don't. It's a divide, but not the Mises Caucus. They don't advocate for that. So
Yeah.
this is a problem because there's a strain of libertarianism that goes into the left, where they want to get rid of property rights and they want open borders and all these things, and it's utopian. It's just
The
utopian.
hedonistic libertarians.
Yes.
Yes.
So in any case, let's talk about a couple other things real quick. I wanted to talk about some the Omicron variant here in a bit, and yeah, we're not going to get into it deeply. I got to watch out.
Omicron, a symbol.
Yeah, right. It's
For
well,
those of you that are old
Omicron.
enough
I
to
will say
remember
this,
that
guys.
noise.
You only have 8 more years of this. When the Great Reset comes at 2030, we'll be done with it. Once those sustainable goals from the UN get met, we'll be good. So it's only 8 more years, folks. Don't worry.
No. You only got a year or 2 more left of this, and then we'll have the climate crisis emergency, and that's where they'll get the next 4 or 6 years.
Or aliens. I'm waiting for aliens still.
Whatever. It's so frustrating because, well, we'll talk about this later. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll get to it, man. We'll get to it. Before we get into that stuff, though, I'm not the best at segueing, guys. Live with it. Deal with it. Keystone XL pipeline
Suck it up, Buttercup.
as Biden revoked permit. We all know about this. This was the other year, or earlier in the year, I should say. Now he has released 50 million barrels of oil from strategic petroleum reserves amid gas price spike. Now, I want to show you how much this is absurd. If you look at barrels per day, this is on average. Now, I don't know about this oil left in the world because I don't believe in peak oil. I don't think it. They've been wrong about peak oil every time they've estimated it. So, in any case, there might be a point of peak oil, but I don't think we're anywhere near it. In any case, 97 million barrels are used a day, per day, in the world.
Is that worldwide or just the U.S.?
I'm pretty sure this is worldwide.
Yeah,
So,
I think the United States uses like 60 billion barrels or something.
Yeah. In any case, this talks about like the reserves and all this stuff. But the biggest point is that is about half of what is used in a day. That is not going to do anything to alleviate prices.
Hey, on the plus side, if they're releasing barrels from the strategic oil reserve, does that mean that my brothers and sisters aren't going to be dying in some foreign land? Because that'd be
There you
great.
go. Yeah.
I would appreciate that.
And then from the Guardian, we have
they sure have been talking up, Hong Kong and the Ukraine.
Oh yeah. Well, he's over there right now doing some delegating, I guess. I don't know. In any case, some climate campaigners praise Biden for releasing emergency oil reserves. I guess I'll read some of this. In a surprising move, some climate crisis campaigners have praised Joe Biden for ordering the release of emergency oil reserves in an attempt to reduce energy prices across the country. On Tuesday, the president announced that the release of the record 50 million barrels of oil stored in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in coordination with other countries, including China, India, and the UK. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is an emergency stockpile. Yeah. And there are roughly 605 million barrels. American consumers are feeling the impact of elevated gas prices at the pump and in their homes and heating bills. Well, that and the hyperinflation that you put into process, the Federal Reserve, that is, the other year.
Oh, let's be real. That started before him. Trump is just as much, if not more, to blame for it, as is Obama, as is Bush. Like,
Well, I don't blame the
this,
presidents for what the Federal Reserve does, despite them appointing chairman. It look, unless you're going to
part of
abolish
the
the Fed,
reason. Okay, but part of the reason that the Fed is doing that is because those politicians were making bills that were in the billions of dollars. So what are they supposed to do? I mean, if you sit there and you go, "Hey, we need to spend $20 billion on or $20 trillion or whatever it is on war," you've got to create it out of thin air. What choice do they have?
right. Well, it's the system is made the way it is to make everyone a debt slave, and it actually encourages corruption. You
Well,
can,
and it's the easiest tax to
yes,
levy onto citizens because most people are completely unaware of how inflation is a tax upon them,
yes. In any
especially
case,
middle class and lower class people.
but between that and then Biden shutting down the pipeline and some stopping fracking, some other stuff in some areas, this is the consequence. And we had good oil prices, and this is all a show. Now, I think,
I used to work in the oil field doing hydraulic fracturing.
yeah, and it's not all the stuff the environmentalists say, is it? Is it, Josh?
No,
Like all the craziness, yeah. Anyways, I think that they're
we
releasing.
actually got to the point where we could recycle the water that we were pumping down. We got really efficient at being able to reduce, reuse, and recycle.
Sweet. Yeah, it's anytime you mess with the environment, because that's the left's biggest sacred cow. They're like, no, don't build a house. You're going to mess up the habitat. You're going to mess up the environment. Don't live. Don't hunt. Don't eat meat.
Well, because they have to have some sort of tether to reality. And so the tether to reality that they claim is the environment, because the environment is supposed to be some sort of static thing that doesn't change. And that's why, here's my question to anybody who sits there and talks about global warming. Okay. How many engines were humans using that allowed the Earth to warm up after the Ice Age?
Right.
And if the answer is that's ridiculous, yes, you're right. It is. And so that must mean that temperature at some level is cyclical, because we had an age before the Ice Age, we had the Ice Age, and we've had an age afterwards where, the entire continent of the majority of the continent of North America isn't covered in glaciers. So that in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean anything other than temperature changes have occurred in the past, and it wasn't due to human beings.
Right, and most likely due to solar patterns is the belief, from my understanding. But what I was going to say about this 50 million barrels of oil, it sounds like a lot. They could go through these oil reserves really quick if they wanted to, and this would be a good way. So you guys have to understand that everything the administration is doing is on purpose to crash the economy and reinvent America. That's what Build Back Better is about. It's not about building anything. It's about destroying everything and bringing us to the same level as the third world. And
well, that's how agents of chaos work. They must destroy and burn down, and because they if you want to change the foundation, you have to destroy the structure that's above it. So then you can change the foundation, and that's their goal. They want to fundamentally transform the United States of America.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Listen to them.
Spook said, "I guess I'm in the minority here for believing that climate change is real." No, climate change is real.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, the climate change has changed for thousands of years. 100%.
I-
So
Again, this concept that it's all or none. If climate change isn't real, then we would never have had the ice age, or we would have had an ice age and it never would have left, right? And so climate change exists. The question you're asking is whether or not the same people who for 50 years have been arguing about whether milk and eggs are good for human beings know what the hell they're talking about. And they don't. They can't plan an economy. They can't control the weather. They can't predict it. It's just impossible. The difference is I'm smart enough to know that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They are so arrogant that they believe they can control the damn weather.
exactly. Let me, if you didn't know this, Spook, but anyone else who did, let me remind you or bring to your attention that Bill Gates was trying to do an experiment to literally black out the sun in order to save the Earth from climate change. He was going to try to black out the sun. I'm not joking. And that's a plot from The Simpsons, like the early season of The Simpsons. So
who's old enough to remember when global cooling was a thing in the 70s?
Spook said, Bill, you know exactly what I meant when I said that. Yeah, I did know what you meant. I know you mean anthropomorphic climate change. And if you start to study carbon and how it works, you have to understand that carbon must be squared in order to create a thermic effect. So every time you have a certain amount of carbon released into the atmosphere, you have to have a squaring of that for it to have it more of a thermic effect, which means the amount has to be ridiculous. And there are people, they'll quote the 96% of scientists did it. No, 96% did not say that this is man-made. They say that man may contribute to it. Contributing
Which
is not
I would
the
agree
same
with.
as causing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I don't think that a 1 or 2% change is going to be catastrophic. In fact, I believe that the Earth warming is beneficial to all life on Earth. And in fact, we know in the past the Earth was much warmer. We had a much higher density of air, of oxygen and such. And so animals were much larger. How do I know that? Because insects breathe through their skin, and they could not be giants like the bugs that we have and fossils if that wasn't true, because they don't have enough surface area to breathe unless there's more density. The whatever you think of dinosaurs, whatever, I don't know. The Bronchiosaurus, the big old long neck, in our modern atmosphere would not have enough air pressure to breathe, to operate its own lungs. So the climate has changed without us. With or without us, it's going to change. And I don't think it's going to be a catastrophic thing. I think that is, again, what Josh just laid out. The people who wish to tell you that eating meat is bad, that God is bad, that being straight is bad, all these things, I think you would probably agree with, isn't bad. And I know you're a Muslim, Spook, so we have different religious beliefs, but there are certain things that we're going to agree upon, right? And that's kind of what I'm getting at with all this. And I think that's what Josh is getting at, right? Yeah. So
I mean, it really sounds foolish, but are eggs and milk good for you or bad for you? And we have seen scientific studies from experts published in journals, peer reviewed, blah blah blah, that say both things and neither. So if they can't figure out basic food that humans have been eating for thousands of years, why do you think they can accurately understand something that is 1,000 times as complex as an egg? I give them no credence. They're fools, and they're so foolish they don't even know they're fools. The difference is I know I'm a pleb.
Right. Well, it's just a bunch of hubris, man. It's I'm not saying like Josh and I don't think we're science deniers or anything like that. I'm quite fond of science and philosophy and the truth. But these people aren't pushing the truth.
No.
So
they are simply attempting to control speech and control thoughts by controlling words, and they are attempting to place science into the position of God. Okay, where they go, oh, well, science says this. No, fallible humans who make errors are claiming on behalf of a concept that they understand everything. And that is incorrect. It's incorrect when humans do it for God. It's incorrect when humans do it for science. But that doesn't mean that you throw out the baby and the bathwater. It just means that you should be skeptical of anyone who claims that they understand all of the majesty that is life and the universe and creation. They don't. They don't
Yeah.
even understand themselves.
We don't even, like, I've been doing diet stuff here lately, Spook. We don't even understand the human body as well as you would like to be, as people would like to believe, as they would like to be told by doctors. They really don't. And I can attest to that because I read this stuff. I've been doing it for years, all the time. And they find new hormones all the time, new enzymes, new things about the human body constantly.
If you haven't checked it out, Bill, you should check out Joshua Rainier. He talked with King Pilled, Matt Erickson. And that was a very interesting conversation. And he goes a lot into food.
Yeah, as far as reducing, Spook, I mean, there might be benefits to it. I don't know. The big problem is stopping all this suddenly. So I actually, we got on a big old long tangent here, but I brought this up because these people are now saying, oh, no, it's a good thing. It's what we should be doing, releasing these barrels, even though they're supposed to be preserving the climate. And I think what they're really doing, the point of releasing these barrels, is to get rid of them, to have them used so they're no longer in reserve. But I'll just leave that one there because we're getting short on time. There's a couple things I want to talk about before we get out of here. So I can stay longer, but Josh really only has about 2 hours for me. So
I can stay longer if need be, but I am going to want some more coffee soon.
Yeah.
Delicious bean water.
Yeah. Hexagram 33. Scientists research whatever there is funding available to research. Absolutely. And when the government funds research, guess what? Government agendas get researched. And they get researched in manners that profit them, right?
And those scientists are human beings are pretty capable of figuring out what other people want. And if you're, it's the same way with nonprofits, it's the same way with politicians. If you solve the problem, then they don't need you anymore.
Right. So let's see. I got get most of these things up. Well, actually, I'll pull some of them up here in a bit. So, anyways, the Omicron variant, travel ban storm in a teacup, says South African Medical Association chairwoman. So Biden has banned 8 African countries from traveling because he's a racist, apparently, because when Donald Trump banned people from traveling, he was a racist, right? Or maybe it has something to do with a disease. But a disease that only 4 people had, and then now pressure mounts for more curbs in Germany as Omicron spreads. 3 people in Germany had Omicron.
You know what's amazing about those 4 people in South Africa? Do you know what they all had in common?
They weren't vaccinated?
They were vaccinated.
Oh, imagine that.
All 4 of them were vaccinated.
Interesting. So, yeah, we're freaking out about this already. From Max Blumenthal, hysterical liberals are seizing on Omicron panic to push their fantasies of criminalizing millions of Americans and denying them freedom of movement because they did not take the jab. COVID has provided a fine window to witness the incept fascism of the center left in decline. By the way, folks, Blumenthal is no righty. So The good news, U.S. requires air travelers entering the country to be vaccinated. The crazy news, this rule doesn't apply to U.S. citizens. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. But here we have a second night of anti-lockdown violence in Europe. Netherlands, a riot spread to Hague while tens of thousands gather to oppose full lockdown in Austria, and demonstrations kick off in Denmark, Croatia, and Macedonia. And again, Europe's been way more based than the States here lately. I don't know what's going on.
Now, what they don't tell you is what kind of anti-lockdown violence is there? Is it the police beating the crap out of protesters? Why, yes, it is.
Yeah, Australia's got a good bit of that too going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just some news on that, and then again, a few things else I wanted to talk about. And I'm going to leave you guys on a real head scratcher, I hope. Be like, why? Why is the U.S. government doing this? So the first one is from the journal Circulation. Now, this is from the American Heart Association. This is an abstract. This is an abstract of a study that's been conducted for 8 years, right? So the study's not really done. They wrote the abstract to highlight the study that they're conducting to bring about this information, it seems. So what does this abstract say? Well, it's talking about those jabs, folks. And I didn't write this. And YouTube, don't yeet me, because right here,
welcome to
is Dr. John Campbell with over 1 million views talking about this paper. This lady talking about this paper. Now, this lady says a bunch of nonsense. Josh shall return. But we're just going to talk about it real quick. And I'll probably play that lady for you, because she totally debunks it. But basically, the group has been using the Plus Cardiac test, a clinically validated measure of multiple protein biomarkers, which generate a score predicting the 5-year risk of an acute coronary syndrome, right? So that is acute in medical terminology, right? Is immediate, right? It just happens, sudden. And coronary syndrome, this is basically heart disease, heart inflammation. And there are variations to this, building up plaques, atherosclerosis, all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm not going to get into all that. But what I am going to get into is the very bottom of this abstract. Now, you can't get the paper because the paper isn't released yet, as far as I'm aware. But it says these changes resulted in an increase of the plus score from 11% 5-year of the cardiac risk, right, to 25% 5-year cardiac risk. At the time of this reporting, these changes persist for at least 2.5 months post-vax. We conclude that the mRNA vax dramatically increases inflammation in the endothelium. The endothelium is the lining of your heart and your arteries and veins and all that stuff. Okay.
Yep.
And the T cell infiltration of cardiac muscles. Your T cells fight off basically viruses, bacteria, garbage that shouldn't be there. And when that spike protein is created in your cells, the T cells attack them. So your body's having an autoimmune response. Again, YouTube, don't eat me. I've seen other people talk about this. This is, something I shouldn't be getting in trouble for. Cardiac muscles, T cell infiltration of cardiac muscles, and may account for the observations of increased thrombosis. That is basically a plaque or a clot, primarily a clot that gets released and, can cause a stroke, cardiomyopathy, and other vascular events following vaccination.
Yeah, my brother is recently was forced to get a vaccine because he's still in the Navy, active duty, and now he's having difficulties because of it. had to go to the ER, and he's having congestion in his chest and difficulties. So we'll see how this goes.
Yep. So
and because he's doing tip of the spear stuff, you know what my brother does. He's in really good physical condition.
Yeah, we've seen this.
Still having these difficulties.
We've seen a lot of athletes and people just dropping over, dropping dead, doing all kinds of stuff.
We're
Liz and I talked about this on the
11
stream.
professional footballers.
Yeah. We talked about this on the stream because while I was gone and doing a trip with my wife, she's on a business trip, and I was with her because the baby. I was doing this research, and I actually felt bad that I hadn't. Some of the research had been out sooner about this stuff, and I hadn't looked at. I had always been, skeptical. Just like the hesitancy for the vax, by the way, the largest amount of hesitancy is amongst PhDs, not amongst regular everyday Joes. It's the PhDs. There's a reason for that. But yeah, we talked about all the problems with it, and it seems quite evident. But if you guys want to read or hear from an actual doctor or scientist about this, I would suggest Dr. John Campbell. But I'm going to play this lady because she just completely dismisses all this, and I find it hilarious.
So this is a very short video about what is known as Abstract 10712. A number of YouTubers have made videos about this abstract in an attempt to appeal to. What they don't tell you is that the abstract in question actually has an expression of concern from the journal in which it is published, because in the words of the journal, the abstract in its current version may not be reliable. Amongst the issues they have found are several typographical errors. That's no big deal, but there is no data in the abstract regarding myocardial T-cell infiltration. There are no statistical analyses for significance provided, and the author is not clear that only anecdotal evidence was used. So don't let these people make money out of you by watching their videos, because they are giving you false information.
I had to mute you there, Josh, because your dog was getting a little loud, but
yeah.
So now further details about the abstract can be found on these links. Boom. But my question is why did they publish it? Okay, this is someone else's writing this. Why did Circulation publish it then? They do this stuff after the fact. Meanwhile, Australia begins the COVID ethnic cleansing of Indigenous people, apparently, for not being vaccinated or other things. They're putting them in their little camps. So the left should be mad about that, but they're not, because they want everyone to get vaxxed.
Because it's their own. The left aren't hypocrites. You just have to understand that the only principle they care about is power.
Yes. Yes. Here we have Alex Berenson telling Joe Rogan about public health in England. This is pretty interesting. You can read that, obviously. Over 70% in England were fully vaccinated in September.
And the best data we have comes out of the UK and Israel. And I have to keep saying this to people because they almost don't believe it. In the UK, 70+% of the people who die now from COVID are fully vaccinated. And in Israel, that was 70%. 70%. 7 in 10 of the people, I'm going to keep saying because nobody believes it, but the numbers are there in the government documents, okay? They're not a secret. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not somebody saying, oh, I heard this from my cousin. It's in British government document from the UK, Public Health England. If you Google variants of concern, UK technical briefing. Here it is. Okay. So these are deaths. Okay. So now, second dose more than 14 days above specimen, before specimen.
My bad.
These are people who have died, fully vaccinated people who have died. There were 1,270 fully vaccinated people who died out of 1,500 in the over 80 category.
But this is under 14 days before
No,
specimen date?
over.
Over.
Second dose greater than 14 days
Oh, I see.
means I am fully vaccinated
Okay.
by anybody's definition.
Okay.
Not vaccinated, it says, when it says second dose before 14 days or more than 14 days, what it should say is fully vaccinated. What I want everyone to see is that the vast majority of people in Britain who died in September were fully vaccinated. 1,270 out of 1,500 were fully vaccinated. 607 of the 70-year-olds out of 800 were fully vaccinated. 258 out of the 411 60-year-olds, they were almost all fully vaccinated. Most people who die of this now are fully vaccinated in the UK. Those are the numbers.
Whoops. I need to unmute myself once I mute myself. And there you go, folks. And again, YouTube, don't yeet me. That's on your thing. I didn't say it. This was an interesting one. Breaking 35,924 people died within 21 days of having a COVID-19 vaccine in England during the first 8 months of 2020, according to ONS data. That is the Official Office of National Statistics. Now, why was this done? Because originally they were following people who died with the coof after 28 days and saying it was a coof death. And now they followed vaxxed people, and a lot of vaxxed people died. I'm not saying it was the vax. I'm sure they died of all kinds of things, but that's how we treated the coof for a while now, wasn't it? Died in a motorcycle accident, had the coof, that's a coof death. Fell off your house, that's a coof death. You know, died by gunshot wound with the coof, that's a coof death. It's like, come on.
Yep.
And the last thing I have for you guys for today, and I am trying to kind of speed through this stuff, guys, but Josh and I'll talk about it a little bit, is this. U.S. government bought 113 million in smallpox vaccines.
So a thing that people don't know that maybe they should in specific regards to smallpox is that may or may not be the single largest thing the CDC in Atlanta studies. Just throwing it out there.
Well, more or less, though, supposedly it's eradicated other than the few labs that have a few vials of it. Right?
Oh no, it's still in the wild in some countries. I mean, there's a reason that I had to get my smallpox vaccination before I went to Afghanistan, right? So in third world countries it still exists, but it just doesn't exist in the rest of the world. But
right,
I mean,
right.
hell,
Well,
the Black Plague has made it come back in the last 5 years.
Right. Well, that's like polio. Polio is almost nowhere. Afghanistan has polio. And parts of Africa, but polio has pretty much been eradicated from most of the world. So, Popcorn said the Omicron variant was discovered in South Africa. I don't know. Are you guys talking amongst yourselves? Hey, Samuel. Nice to see you here. We're about ready to finish up, bud. So you're gonna have to go back and rewatch, I guess. So why are they buying all these smallpox vaccines? Is the question. And
if I remember correctly, didn't this certain non-doctor named Bill say something about preparing for an upcoming epidemic that might look something like smallpox, something? It sounded a lot like 2015 and coronavirus, if I remember correctly. Except this time they were talking about smallpox.
Yeah, well, right here we have some stuff. It says Saga Technologies, a commercial stage pharmaceutical company, today reported financial results for the 3 and 9 months ended September 30th, 2021. Looking forward to the fourth quarter of 2021, we are coordinating with our supply chain to deliver up to approximately 113 million in total of oral Topax, which is a smallpox drug, to the U.S. government, almost 30% of which was delivered in October. This progress highlights the strong and growing revenue base of Topax, as well as yada, yada, yada. And here we have the FBI and CDC investigates vials labeled smallpox found in a lab in Merrick near Philadelphia, if you guys remember the story from the other week. Meanwhile, Bill Gates warns of smallpox terror attacks as he seeks funding.
Oh, man, I showbizzed you. My bad.
Oh, don't worry about it. I'm all like Sniper. Sniper's like, you guys keep showbizzing me. I love you, brother. I love you, Sniper. So, it's going to happen unless I give you like a ton of show notes, and I don't make show notes. So I just, I just run my mouth.
Right.
This
I'm
is a video.
showing people how capable and intelligent I am and why I should
Yes,
be their
yes.
elected representative. Bah.
On the fly. Yes. This is why I stumble and stammer when I speak all the time, folks. I'm not the most eloquent speaker. It's why I'll never be a big time YouTuber, but oh well. Oh well. I'm doing my part of what I got to do. This is the video where Gates warned the world's leaders about the potential behavior attacks with smallpox. Lab workers found vials labeled smallpox. Yeah. Here we go. We got a little video. You won't play? Oh, that's right. Because I had to put this in archive because I kept saying you have an ad blocker. I forgot about that. Even though I took my ad blocker off. The Independent reported Bill Gates has warned governments to prepare for smallpox terrorist attacks and future pandemics by investing billions into research and development. Let me bigly this, folks. There we go. Mr. Gates made the comments in a policy exchange interview with the chair of the Health Select Committee, Jeremy Hunt. He said that countries like the US and the UK must spend tens of billions to fund the research, adding that while it may be expensive, it could lead to the eradication of the flu and common cold. Okay. I'm hoping in 5 years I can write a book called We Are Ready for the Next Pandemic, but it'll take tens of billions in R&D. And the US and UK will be part of that, he said. All right.
Yeah.
In any case, there are numerous companies that have developed these smallpox vaccines and whatever else. It's quite strange that we are gearing up for this because of the words of Bill Gates.
Again, you should listen to them when they tell you what they want and what they're doing.
Yep.
And especially if I remember correctly, he talked with that meeting with the UN Health Security Council occurred the same weekend the World Economic Forum met, if I remember correctly. I've been wrong before.
Yep. Well, guys, I hear my baby crying, and left my wife alone with her for the last 2 hours. But Mr. Joshua Hamm, once again, is running for Texas House and District 12, and he's trying to basically primary the incumbent, and he needs your help. So go to his website. I have put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat again. It is in the description. Go over there and donate to him, please. It will help his campaign. If you want good people with good morals who don't believe in crazy things, but believe in reality and the community and justice and righteousness and these things, then Josh is your guy. So, I've gotten to know him over, I don't know, some months. He calls me every now and again out of nowhere, and we chat, which is absolutely fine. I didn't even remember how you got my phone number. So honestly,
I asked for it
from me directly, because I would assume that's how you would have got it, but
I think via Twitter DM due to conversations that we had where basically you were talking on stream, and I guess the things that I was saying on stream were interesting enough that we were basically having a conversation live on stream. And so then you kind of, I messaged you on DM, and then you said, "Hey, why don't you just call me, dude?"
Yeah,
because we have some interesting, like-minded ideas when it comes to building intentional communities.
Yeah, we do.
Building economic structures that are parallel institutions,
Yeah.
and the
And
necessity of it.
I have a vision and a plan that I'm working on. I need help. I will need help, but I'm going to devote a portion of my time, the many things I have my hands into, of making a free state project here in West Virginia. And I have goals in mind with taking over certain counties, and I'm going to get that wheel moving as soon as I can. So I'm going
And
to
hopefully
work
you'll
on that.
talk to
I
my
know,
brother.
right.
Hopefully you'll talk to my brother more about that, because he and I were talking about the exact same thing.
Yeah. Well, and I know that it will take a while, and this isn't a thing I expect to happen in a generation. I expect it to take time, but we will get it done, and we'll have another bastion of liberty like New Hampshire's become, except for a lot bigger of a state. Because New Hampshire is pretty tiny. I mean, West Virginia isn't. It's not huge, but it's pretty huge for an East Coast state. It's pretty big.
Yeah, I mean,
you
it's
know,
not Texas, where you could literally fit the entirety of the world's population.
right. But let me check the
With room to
chat real
spare.
quick.
Yeah, and that's one of those stats that most people don't know, wherein you're like, people are worried about overpopulation and everything else. And it's like, you realize that you could fit everybody in Texas, everybody. Like, I'll worry about overpopulation when that actually becomes a thing. Now, sustainable farming would be nice to have as opposed to monoculture
Well, yeah,
crops.
I think Tank and I talk about this every now and again on the It's Justify the Memes that the most of the environmentalist right solutions work, and all the leftist stuff is a bunch of utopian nonsense that's just going to make you poor and have millions of people die and starve. That's what the left wants.
It's easier to control the peasants who own nothing.
Yep. And what I want is people to develop community and rule their own lives, instead of these globalist elitists that have been selling us out for a century. So
I will say, though, that when it comes to Republicans or libertarians, a thing to understand is that most people aren't buying liberty. They're just not. Okay. What they will buy is law and order. They'll buy security. And so if you're a good leader, then what you do is you sell them security that also increases liberty. Prime example that I use often is school choice. When I say the word school choice, most people are like, well, sure, we all agree on that, but nothing really happens. Well, if you change it from this nebulous concept of liberty of school choice, which, those of us who really care about it, we care about, but we're talking, for the general public. If you change that idea and instead you market protecting children from the violence and propaganda at government schools, well, now, even though I'm talking about the same thing, I've changed how I'm talking about it, and I'm selling security disguised, or I'm selling liberty disguised as security. And that's what you really need to do as a good person on the right. You have to understand what people want. Politics is sales and marketing for power. So stop trying to fight human nature and instead develop ways in which you can increase the liberty for people while getting people to buy into it. Because simply selling liberty isn't going to be enough. If it was, then the Libertarian Party wouldn't have been stuck at 3% of the population for the last 50 years.
Right. Yeah.
Work with what you got, man.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that you say often is that you got to appeal to the people's emotions, and the thing that you get them at is the children. And we've seen that. We've seen that with the CRT stuff. I mean, I live right by Loudoun County. We've seen that going on there. It's been going on elsewhere. These people weren't paying attention. They were asleep at the wheel while they were letting their children be corrupted. And
so was I, until my
right.
children were forced out of school, forced to wear masks, were tyrannized and terrorized by their own government and by the people who are supposed to be looking out for them. That's why I'm here.
Right. And yeah, I don't know, man. I think I'm going to leave it there because I do need to get out of here. But you want to
For
say
brother.
last thoughts?
Last thoughts is I really am a diesel mechanic veteran. Like, I cannot afford to do this on my own. I have thus far. I've had to take out loans, and I'm doing everything I can because I believe. But I could really use some help. And quite frankly, dollars are what is going to be important. Unless you happen to live locally. If you live locally, then by all means, volunteer. I can use the help of volunteering as well. But all operations run off of cash flow, all of them. And I don't care if it's $5. I can really use the help.
Right. Right. And yeah, guys. I mean, like I said before, charity is an individual obligation. You can't obfuscate that responsibility. If you believe in God, then you should believe that you have to donate charity. And one of the ways you can do that, which not only would help Josh and maybe even the people of his district, of course, but is to help fund his campaign. So it goes even further in that way if he wins, because he can affect change in Texas. And Texas is a mixed state where it's pretty red, but certain areas are purple, certain areas are blue.
And as Texas goes, so goes the nation.
Yep.
And so the stronger that we can make Texas, the more free the rest of the states in the union can be. And I've personally find it unconscionable that Texas isn't leading the way on liberty for people. We need to change that.
Yeah, right now it's Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Which good for Florida, but I mean, Texas is doing a decent job. Don't get me wrong, but I do tend to give Texas a hard time.
It's a matter of understanding perspective. Like, Texas isn't as good as it could be, but I'm still far more free here than I would be if I lived in California or New York. So it is a win. It's just not as good a win as I would like. Youngkin is still a win in Virginia. He's not as good as we would like. We need to hold his feet to the fire. We need to sit there and ensure that he does more, does better. But he's still a win because McAuliffe would be infinitely worse. Don't take victories and turn them into losses. Understand that they're small victories and build upon them. You're not going to have a hero ride in on a white knight, and solve the day. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. It's been 100 years getting here. You're not getting it fixed by electing one person and then abandoning them. It's not going to work. It's going to require a collective effort over time.
It means getting involved yourselves. You can't just sit back, especially if you have children. If you're single, maybe you can focus on some other things in your life. But just remember, the more the left wins, the more they put these things onto you, the less likely that you are going to be in a culture that you're going to find that good wife that you want or that good husband, because what they want to push on everyone is the acceptance of evil. And with that, guys, I'm going to get out of here. This has been All Minus One. My name is Bill, and I wish you all well.